you think to the Iwagumi? You like it? Hi everyone, George here, and welcome to another aquascaping video here at the GFS Gallery. Before we get into the aquascaping itself, I do have an announcement. At the time of filming, I reached 95,000 subscribers. I can't tell you how grateful I am. I really appreciate you watching my content and hopefully enjoying it. And as a thank you, if and when I reach 100,000 subscribers, hopefully, I don't want to take anything for granted, but hopefully in a month or so, I'll get to that magic 100K. I want to give away this aquarium system. So this is the Dua Aqua 30. I'll supply the cabinet as well, which is underneath. It comes with the ADA lighting, ADA aqua soil, built-in filtration. I'll supply the hardscape and the plants as well. And not only that, I will supply myself. So if you want me to aquascape it for you, or you want to aquascape it yourself with my guidance, or you want to do it yourself, we could do it in the gallery, or we could do it at your place, depending on how far away you live. Lots of options. Watch the video to the end and I'll explain exactly how you could be in with a chance of winning when I reach the 100,000 subscriber mark. And full disclaimer, this equipment here hasn't been donated as part of the giveaway. This is out of my own pocket as well. So this video is going to be how I aquascape this Aquascaper 600 by Evolution Aqua. I've featured the Aquascaper 600 aquarium now in probably 40 or 50 videos on the channel, so many of you will be aware of this aquarium. Low iron, rimless, really good aquascaping tank because it has low iron glass. It's rimless like I just said, so you can have things coming out the top. It's just perfect for aquascaping. One of my favourite aquariums of all time. The aquascape we're going to create today is called Iwagumi. This is the Japanese word for basically rock garden. And in aquascaping, it was pioneered by the late great Takashi Amano. Over 30 years ago now, I believe he created his first Iwagumi aquascape. I'll try to see if I can find an image of that for you right now. This is going to be what we call a minimalist Iwagumi. So I'm only going to use 3 rocks. This is called a Sanzon Iwagumi. Because it's very minimal, it's very kind of stark and very almost like Zen-like, very peaceful. But a lot of people don't find it attractive. Maybe it's not interesting enough for them. And there is a lot of argument or a lot of kind of controversy about, are these kind of layouts suitable for fish? Fish tend to prefer surface cover, lots of areas for shade and feelings for security, etc., which in these kind of open minimalist aquascapes, some fish might find them uncomfortable. So a disclaimer, you do need to select the appropriate fish if you want them to thrive in an Iwagumi kind of aquascape. Let me know what your thoughts are at the bottom. Do you like Iwagumi? And let me know why. I'm always interested to know what your thoughts are. So probably no surprise for many of you that we're going to be using Tropica Soil here. Proven performer, grows the plants really well, provides great nutrient source for the plant roots, helps to lower the pH and the hardness slightly, doesn't need pre-rinsing, helps to colonize bacteria because it's kind of like a porous material. Just a really great product. We're using the normal grain size here. It does come in a powder type as well, which is a smaller grain. Don't confuse this with the Tropica plant substrate, which is a completely different product designed to be used underneath a sand or gravel. This is designed to be used on its own. So let's open it up and pour it in. But before I do that, I do have some old substrate from the previous aquascape that was in here. And the great thing about using the old stuff, it's going to be harbouring loads of beneficial bacteria, which are going to kickstart all the biological processes in the aquascape, so hopefully we get a trouble-free startup. So let's start off by putting the old substrate in first. So now I like to use a paintbrush because I don't want to get my splosh. Don't want to get my nails dirty. This is going on the bottom, and like I said, loads of beneficial bacteria in here. Loads of microorganisms that are just going to help us avoid these early algae issues, which you can get very likely in an aquascape, especially in an aquascape with minimal planting, which is kind of what we're going to be doing. Not minimal planting, but we're not going to be using loads of fast growing weeds. So, you know, I learnt a lesson from my 1200 aquascapes, just out of shot there. For those that have been following the progress on that, I did experience some really bad algae problems, and the reason for that was I didn't have enough plant growth. So the risk is for the minimal Iwagumi, because we're using carpeting plants and a lot of these aren't necessarily that fast growing, there is a massive risk of algae. So anything we can do to help prevent that risk is great. And one of those things is this mature substrate, and then we'll talk about the other mitigating factors later in the video. So we'll just flatten that out. It doesn't need to be super flat because we're going to be putting rocks in there, and then I'll do a final kind of positioning and flattening of the substrate afterwards for maximum aesthetic value. Let's talk about rocks. Rocks are of course going to be fundamental to the success of this aquascape. It's an Iwagumi, which means rock garden. So the rocks are the main event, they're the main focal point. So it sounds quite obvious, but we need to select, buy the appropriate rocks. I think it's a good idea to consider 4 aspects when you're choosing your rock: size, colour, shape, and texture. So let's go through each of those. Size, make sure the rocks are big enough. A big common beginner mistake is to have the rocks too small. They don't give sufficient impact to the aquascape. They'll get soon smothered by plants, and there's almost no point in having them in there at all. Conversely, you could have something that's too big and it's too dominating. So, consider the size. Shape, think about how you want the feeling of the aquascape to be conveyed. Do you want it to be kind of mimicking a stream effect, in which case you might want to use smooth boulder type rocks, which you would find in nature in streams because of the erosion of the stone over time, the water running over the stone creates a smooth effect? Or do you want to create more like a mountain range effect where it's going to have kind of jaggedy edges, a bit more kind of high impact? Then think about the texture and the colour. So texture, you can have again like smooth boulder shaped rocks or slate, or you can have really rough kind of gouges, different colour veins running through it. And then think about the colour. Dragonstone is typically sort of like an orangey yellow brown colour, and then you have things like mini landscape or Siri, which is like a grey, and then there's all sorts, there's black lava rock, there's greys, almost white rocks, all sorts of colours. So think about these and how you want the aquascape to look. So I'm very excited to introduce a brand new stone to you. I've never used this before. It's the first time I've ever seen it in the flesh. It's from our friends at Aquarium Gardens. It's called Millennium Stone or Millennium Rock. To me, it looks very similar to Mini Landscape crossed between Grey Mountain. So it has these beautiful kind of gouges. The colour's very similar to Mini Landscape and the kind of white veins running through it. But there's like a crisscross of the gouges which remind me of the Grey Mountain. And instead of being kind of quite jaggedy, it does have a kind of smooth effect as well. So really interesting, beautiful textures, and really exciting to use this. I did actually pick the 3 stones in the store. I'll overlay some video footage of me actually playing in the sandpit, doing the dry scaping. And this is another really good talking point. I would encourage, if your local aquarium store doesn't have a dry scaping area and they have the room for it, then I would encourage you to ask them to create one. When you're buying your hardscape, it's a really good idea to make sure you like it and to test it out and actually experiment with layouts actually in the store. You've got access to all those great materials hopefully in the store. Pick and choose, have a play around, and then you can guarantee that you're going to be satisfied with those purchases before you actually leave the store, rather than just kind of going in there and almost randomly picking stuff hoping it's going to fit into your aquarium. If it's a good store and they listen to their customers, then they should make one for you if there's a room. If not, then maybe worth considering going somewhere else, just my opinion. On that topic of buying hardscape, it's worth, I talk about this a lot, but it's always worth investing in decent hardscape. Let's say you just want to create an Iwagumi like I did. I just bought the 3 stones for this scape. If I saw another stone or another piece of wood that looked really great, I would have bought it, because for me, it's always great to have this resource of materials. The more hardscape we have, the more opportunity we have to create good hardscape layouts. And If you've watched many of my videos, you know how important the hardscape layout is to the whole aquascape. It's the backbone of the layout. Start off with a strong hardscape, you can quite easily create a strong aquascape. So, always buy more than you need of hardscape. Make sure you choose the right size, colour, texture, shape, and encourage your store owner to get a dry scaping area. So that's enough of me rambling. I hope you enjoyed that little session. Let's crack on with the actual positioning of the rocks. First thing I always do is start off with the main stone, the master stone. I kind of know where it's going to go because I experimented in Aquarium Gardens. So this is the most attractive side of the rock. We want this facing the viewer, of course. Now I'm using like the rule of thirds to ensure the main weight of the stone, the main kind of focal area, is in line with the rule of thirds. So split the tank into three. The first third is around here. So let's make sure the kind of middle of the stone is in line with that a third of the way along. And then just pop that in there like so, and then we can take a look. Quite happy with that so far. We can always make adjustments as we go. Now we move on to our secondary stone. This is the second largest. Again, looking at it, which is the most attractive side, which is going to look most natural against this stone. Let's do that there for now. And we do have some more soil to go in, so this is going to really affect the overall composition as well. I think we need to move this to the back a little bit. Let's move this one up there slightly. Okay, these are looking a little bit too samey. There's not enough tension. They look too similar in terms of their texture, the way they're facing. I think it would be more interesting if we added a bit more tension. There we go. So actually so we have this kind of natural line here, we have a natural line here, and if we make those kind of perpendicular to each other, that means at a right angle to one another. This can help create a much nicer effect, I think. Now it's a case of just keep playing around. We've got our third stone now. Let's just pop this one here. Just make sure we have enough room in front of that to plant, otherwise we kind of losing the effect. Okay, I think this needs to move over to the right slightly, to the right as well. Now when you're planting, this is going to affect the overall balance as well. Okay, I'm just going for a different layout completely now. So this is a good learning point. Take your time. There's no rush. Oh, that's nice. It's going to change massively once we put more soil in there, the plants. It might not look perfect right now, and that's okay because it's going to change significantly. So even if it did look perfect now, very likely it wouldn't look perfect later. So it's almost worth not making it look perfect and then using the plants and the extra soil to get that final look that you're after. As with all art forms, it's all subjective as well. So what might look great to me might look absolutely awful to you. So feel free to comment below and let me know what you think to it. Okay, so I think I'm happy with that. It looks great in 3 dimensions. It might look different on the video, which is obviously in 2 dimensions, which is another interesting point when you're creating a layout. Just make sure it looks good to you as you see it. You know, where are you going to be viewing the scape from? Are you going to be sitting down? Are you going to be standing up? Are you going to be viewing it from an angle? Are you going to be viewing it from directly onwards? You know, take all these things into consideration because you're the person that has to live with it. You're the person that needs to enjoy it. You know, there's a lot of people that are super anxious about trying to create something nice to impress people with, you know, to put it online and constantly asking for feedback and critiques and things, which is great, but don't forget, you've got to enjoy it for yourself as well. You know, it's a beautiful hobby and it's enriching and peaceful, and you know, just try to sit back sometimes and just enjoy it for what it is. Good, okay, let's add some more soil. So we're adding our new soil on top of the old soil. Just a reminder, the old soil is from the previous scape, so it'll have lots of good bacteria in there. Using our paintbrush now, we can make it look nice and neat. I'll move the camera so you can see the layout of the rocks better, give you a bit of more of a 3-dimensional indication of what's going on. So the good thing about having a top layer of brand new soil is it will have more nutrients in there, which will feed the plants better. We also like to plant into dry soil, find this easier, less chance of the plants floating when we do eventually fill with water. Now what can also happen is the soil is quite a loose kind of structure when we do fill with water. Depending on how the rocks are positioned on the soil can actually kind of move and the rocks will move. So you do need to bear this in mind as well. So don't be surprised when you do fill with water, the rocks can shift slightly. You can support them with other rocks underneath or a different type of substrate underneath. This is quite a popular technique. We are going quite steep at the back. This helps to give us a enhanced sense of depth. And I am kind of creating this mound effect. So it's kind of more steeper towards the center of the scape and shallower towards the edge. So the substrate is, a very important part of the scape as well as the stone. Okay, just going to clear this mud away. Okay, now it's time to plant. We're going to use exclusively Tropica 1-2 grow. I've got 4 species here. Staragini repens. This is going to go kind of around the center of the scape because it's going to grow a little bit taller, broader leaf, nice fresh green colour. Then we have my Chrysanthemum Monte Carlo. I'm going to mix this up with the Eleocharis mini. These are going to go more around the front area. I do have more pots than this. But if I really wanted to, I could probably plant the whole tank with just these because there's so many tiny little plants in these pots. And then we've got good old Harlanthrium tenellum, using this quite a lot lately. I'm actually going to put this more towards the background because this actually does have the potential to grow fairly tall if you just keep letting it grow and grow. I'll prepare them in the utility room. I'll do a time lapse of that, then we'll plant. Really important to stop the plants from drying out. Particularly important with the Tropica 1-2 grow range. These particular species are grown in a nutrient-rich liquid, which means they're adapted to their underwater form, so they're more likely to dry out. So important we keep them wet, otherwise they dry out and die. So let's talk about the plants themselves. Really excited to finish. It took me a while, probably 300 or so individual portions in there. There's a Harlanthrium tenellum in the background. This has the potential actually to grow quite tall. If you just let it keep carpeting and carpeting, it eventually kind of carpets on top of each other. And we can use this effect to our advantage, I think, to create a beautiful, fresh green backdrop. Then we have the Staragini just around this mid-ground area. And then this can be trimmed and pruned to keep this kind of mound effect. So we can follow the strata of the stone coming up here. And then to the left and right and the foreground, we have a mixture of the Eleocharis acicularis mini and the Chrysanthemum Monte Carlo. All of these plants Tropica 1-2 grow. It's worth talking about the hairgrass and the Monte Carlo in more detail. You may have noticed I've mixed them together, and the reason for that is that we don't want a flat uniform texture. I'm a really big fan of the nature aquarium concept, which is this transferring of nature or scenes from nature, the essence, and bringing them into the aquarium environment. So with that in mind, I like to mix the textures up. Very rarely see, completely flat, monotone meadows in nature. For that reason, I've mixed the two textures up. The Monte Carlo, very round leaf, and the Eleocharis mini, a tall, spiky texture, like the leaf blades. These will gradually intermix together and create a beautiful, solid carpet with slightly different textures. I think the whole thing is going to look great. Obviously it needs to grow in and we need to do maintenance on it. The maintenance on this is going to be pretty insane, and I'll explain why after I've filled the aquarium up with water using, where is it? The special red colander. I'll find it. Okay, so filled up with water. Now we're ready to fit and run the equipment. I will cover that in a separate video. Lots to talk about: lighting choice, Kessel or Twin Star, how to set up the filter, CO2 kit, etc. So I think that's worth another completely different video. I will talk about maintenance quickly right now because that is a really important part to the aquascaping. Obviously it only looks good if we maintain it appropriately. So I will attempt, I am at home now, still at home for a week or so. So I will be doing daily water changes on here, big water changes to help prevent algae. And we've got new soil in there, so this is going to leach nutrients which we need to dilute with the large water changes. I'm going to add loads of CO2, so I won't be adding any livestock obviously. Loads of CO2, this is going to help improve the plant growth, and as you may know by now, the healthier the plant growth, the less chance of algae we get. So by focusing on really promoting a good healthy plant growth and these big daily water changes, hopefully this is going to reduce the risk of algae. It is Iwagumi, minimalist Iwagumis are particularly prone to algae because of the relatively low plant biomass. There's no fast growing weeds in here. So some algae is very likely, but I'll keep you updated guys. Make sure you're subscribed for future updates. That's it for this video guys. Really hope you enjoyed it. A little bit of a different format, quite formal with the filming angles, etc. Let me know what you think about that in the comments. It's more of a sterile kind of studio atmosphere I've gone for in this video. I really like this style of scape. I don't know what you guys think. It is very minimal, it is very stark, but I think in terms of having a diverse range of styles of aquascape for the gallery, I think this suits that. I think it is a style that needs to be talked about and discussed. A lot of people are against it because of the kind of welfare for the fish, but I think if we do choose fish appropriately, this isn't a problem. So with that in mind, guess what question I'm going to ask? What fish would you stock in here? So do consider, you wouldn't want to be putting really shy fish that don't like open spaces and bright lights. So, hopefully you'll take that into consideration, but always read your comments guys, and I try to reply to as many of you as I can. What do you think to the Iwagumi? You like it? Nearly forgot to explain the rules for the 100k giveaway. I don't actually know I have no idea how to decide who to give it away to. I'll tell you what guys, you leave in the comments some sort of system, a fair system that we can choose someone that's going to win the Dua Aqua 30 complete setup, hardscape, plants and Aquascape by me if you're interested. Come up with some sort of competition idea, be as elaborate as you like, as complex as you like, or as simple as you like. I'll have a look through and consider all options. You take care, keep on scaping. Cheerio. Cheerio, Tommy. Cheerio. Always read your comments, guys, and I try to reply to as many of you as I can, even if you're one of the trolls. I had this one guy today. You've sold out to the YouTube algorithm or something like this because I did the low-tech bowl. He seemed to really hate that and unsubscribed apparently. So sorry to see you go if you're watching this video. Anyway, can't please everyone all of the time. The next comment down was like, this is your best video yet. So anyway, I'm rambling again. I should have worn my I Love Rambling t-shirt. Here's Tommy. You gonna say hello, say cheerio to everyone? Ooh, whoa, okay, there he is. He's a good boy, isn't he?